Welcome back to Bride Price, a culture or the new slavery. In this third episode of a 5-part documentary that will be aired weekly, MIFUMI brings you exclusive footage of this very emotive issue that captures the views of extraordinary people who have experiences of bride price and of those who have championed its reform, going way back to the first National Commission on the Status of Women held in 1965, which produced the Kalema Report on Women's Rights. Today we will be exploring the vices of bride price. That is, we will be looking at the problems associated with this so-called cherished practice.
Akaanza kunipiga sasa. Akanianza kukanyaga kila fasi. Kaniarusha huko fasi taiko, tana ikapasukia mimi. Sasa mimi nasukuma ingekapata chance yenye mimi inatoka. Na sasa mimi nimeona nimeteseka sana na kupiga hiyo. Siwezi maliza mwezi kabla kupiga. Kumaliza wiki 2 ama 3 ni bahati. Mpaka na sai masikio yangu. Siku nyingine unaamka huwezi sikia.
Of all the patients who get here, actually we get majority are mothers. Half of the mothers who come on domestic violence. And if these physical injuries, sometimes they are deep cuts, they are broken limbs, they are actually head injuries that are really alarming, and several cases of sexual violence.
Today, we explore the controversial question of whether bride price is a major contributing factor to domestic violence, and we try to find out why the woman from Palisa was forced to breastfeed puppies, as we listen to the experiences of women on the ground.
The impact assessment of this problem, as you mentioned, is very, very significant. It's affecting development, it's affecting people's personal security, it's affecting the whole society, cohesion. You know, the whole society is crumbling in a sense, and all of this is very hidden. So what you have there, cultural leaders who should be responding to this matter do not want to recognize that there is a problem, that what we talk of as bride price is no longer what it originally was and is something else that is not culture. But that is something they don't want to recognize. Many people are eloping. The whole institution of marriage that many people talk about is actually shattered. Elopement, cohabitation, marriage of young children right down to 9, 10, 11-year-olds is happening in society, and people get away with this with impunity. Most of the majority of people in the community are very apathetic. They feel that this problem is so big that they can't respond to it. Leadership that should have come from the political circles or should have come from the cultural circles is not being demonstrated. And so everybody is having a very, very bad experience with bride price. Sale of land is another issue.
There are even situations where a man begins mistreating his wife because he says, well, I've had to sell off the only 5 acres of land I had in order to marry you. Now we have only 1 acre of land to share. So there is a problem for that from that perspective as well.
Bride price creates inequality amongst men and women.
The children. Bride price leads to early marriage, it leads to forced marriage, it leads to child abuse, it leads to defilement, it leads to almost all kinds of child abuses you can think of. Because of poverty, we have fathers who are marrying off their daughters at the age of 14, at the age of 16. Why? Because they want to extort whatever bride price they can extort. Because of the imbalance it brings into the family, it leads to a lot of economic instability, which is negative to the productive force of this nation, and it just doesn't contribute to the gross domestic product of the country. In fact, much as many people say that poverty leads to domestic violence, in MIFUMI we believe domestic violence leads to poverty, and bride price leads to domestic violence. So that is the extent to which the impact is felt.
We also asked the question whether bride price is a problem only affecting women from the east and northern parts of Uganda, or whether it is such a hidden problem affecting women throughout the country. Find out by listening to the experiences of women from the Arab world.
The long-term implication of the bride price on women, life, and how it's crippling their choices and ability, to move on if it happened that they want to move on, and how it impacts their children and all those things. Women in rural areas and women in villages, they are so helpless because when they are poor, they are still living under customary and traditional laws, so it's up to the tribal chiefs to decide, and the elders' councils, or whatever you name it, across the Horn of Africa. I've seen so many women, for example, in certain areas and places and parts of the Horn of Africa, they were sent to prison. Because what happened if they, at a certain point, the marriage fall apart, they went to the traditional court or to the elders' council, they won their divorce, they were asked to retain the bride price, and where is the bride price? So they failed to retain that, and then they would be sent to jail. There is so many women in prisons, for example, in places like South Sudan at the moment, basically because of the bride price.
Is domestic violence and bride price related?
Most of the stories, when we are looking for causes of violence, we found that a lot of it can come from bride price, because many people are unable to return bride price, and many women suffering violence go to their homes, and the parents say, now I have no money to return this bride price, so they send them back to the man. Then the man sends them back to their home, and they keep moving around in a rotation with nowhere to go till some of them even decide to take their lives.
Omusaada obanga nkuba ali kukuba nteye yasasula baba wange yenja ye baba gololo wuwo zirante inja kusasula naafuna okwebonaabona ino munumba zino omusaada wange ekyabaawo nakuba nti be mala gafa nja kunwa poison nfe abaana bange babona nti magombe ga maama waife mbeera nonze nanwa poison Katonda yanamba tinafa navaawo najo waife okutuuka waife baba ali kuminga gololo wo nzirante inja kusasula.
Let us explore further the link between domestic violence and bride price.
The relationship between domestic violence and bride price comes right from the definition. Bride price as a condition of payment for your bride in exchange for her reproductive rights, her productive rights, and all of that. Indeed, at the process where bride price is paid, it is mentioned that you're now going, we are not expecting you to come back. Now that is where the whole problem is. You're bonded, your labor, your reproduction. And if any of those conditions should fail, then the environment is set for violence and abuse. For example, if a woman doesn't have children, this was part of that agreement. The man may want to bring in another wife, and then violence will happen. He may want a refund of his cows because the conditions have been broken. So I see that bride price sets the condition for inequality in marriage, which leaves women vulnerable and exposed to all sorts of abuse without any recourse, because it's a contractual arrangement, a conditional arrangement.
It starts with a bad relationship. The love is hardly not there. She becomes something chattel, something to work for him, to please him, to do everything for him.
We went to find out why the woman from Palisa was forced to breastfeed puppies. And lo and behold, what did we find lurking there? Bride price.
Asono poti sama unosi. Nesu ngono buo kliniko gani sadia karo kaleke.
This woman actually quoted a statement before the pressman, that this man was telling her to breastfeed the dogs because the cows that had been paid for had long gone, and now there was no milk to feed the dogs.
The bottom line of bride price is about dehumanizing women.
Does bride price add status and value to women? Here are some views.
Bride price has got strings attached to it. They give with the right hand and expect to receive back through the left hand. They make sure the woman really labors so much to benefit the family of the husband more than even what they've taken to the parents.
Some women might not agree with it, or might say like, oh, bride price is the only thing we get out of the men, so how come they want to take it away from us? But if they would just think about it, they would realize that bride price is actually, it doesn't go to the woman, while it's also a burden, as we all know.
I have examples in Western Uganda and all over the country where women are stuck in abusive marriages because their parents cannot refund the so-called bride price. Somebody maybe paid 8 cows, they were eaten off. Some of them are even spent to do the wedding. The woman is stuck there because the parents cannot refund the 8 cows. I had an example of a colleague at the Pan-African movement who passed away, but we did not know whether she would be buried because the husband had not paid bride price. The man had to first raise money to pay for a dead body and take the dead body back to his home. But look at that torture. You've lost a wife, but the wife is hijacked the body until you first pay bride price.
How can you refuse someone to be buried because he has not paid?
That is disrespecting the dead, really. And wow, if we are believers and we go to church and we go to the mosque, you read the Bible, you read the Quran, you shouldn't, you're not God to decide to tell somebody that you're not going to be buried. You can't just disrespect the dead person. You're hurting the kids' feelings. Really, it's not right.
But if a woman is cherished as a spring of life, how do you let her decompose on her deathbed because bride price has not been paid? You have dehumanized her. You have robbed her of all her dignity, all her humanity. You have robbed her of everything me and you should enjoy as human beings on this planet. It's barbaric.
I think it is disgraceful not to bury a woman because of bride price.
But when someone dies, someone has died, and you have to respect the dead. And so keeping them there just because you want to claim some money or cows, whatever, which is actually going to get finished in the next few years, I think is disrespectful of the dead. When someone dies, they deserve to be respected and laid to rest with respect.
You see, people becoming even unkind to dead bodies, and they leave the dead body to remain there rotting while you're looking for some animals to go and pay. This is 21st century. Is it very important for us to continue with that type of mentality? I think no, and that one I don't agree.
Don't forget to catch this controversial issue Sunday at 4:30 p.m. for a repeat on Saturday at 5 p.m. brought to you by MIFUMI and showing exclusively on NTV.